Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for attending our session on Ask Me Anything. And today we're going to talk about planning your retirement. Some disclaimer, like all sessions, yeah. We want to emphasize that whatever we share today are merely to provide you financial education and guidance only. Right? We do not give any advice, and we do not promote any products and services. If you do need advice and you want to take some actions into your financial planning, do consult a licensed financial advisor. All right. And perhaps I will share with you what is Institute for Financial Literacy. For short, we call IFL. It's a collaboration between Money Sense, the National Financial Education Program, and Singapore Polytechnic Enterprise. Now, the Institute is the outreach arm of Money Sense. We conduct free and unbiased financial education for the public. So, as mentioned, today, our Ask Me Anything session is about your retirement planning. So come, let's start and and be comfortable with this. Yeah. Okay. To begin, shall we think about what you want to do in retirement? Now, these are the three most common ideas that most retirees want to do. So, which category you fall into? Shall we run a poll, and then maybe we will know what interests you most? Yeah. So while you're doing a poll, maybe we just talk about what is retirement. Yeah. Actually, retirement is not like not doing anything, right? It's just that you want to do things that you really want to do in your life without the concern about money, right? So that's what today's session is all about. Retirement with your finances planned out so that you can pursue what you want to do. All right. So, okay, I'm interested to know what you guys like to do most. Yeah, travel the world, look after family, or give back to society. Okay. Do we have any results come? Okay. Okay, good. We have the results now. Okay, looks like what we have here. Travel the world is 73%. Wow. Look after family, we have 15%, and the rest give back to society. Looks like everybody wants to travel the world, yeah? Nice, nice. I guess, I think all along, everybody wants to travel, and more so nowadays, given the COVID, I think for the last 2 years, we cannot leave Singapore. We are kind of isolated here. I guess that explains the result. Wow. Okay, so we look forward to that, yeah? But remember, travel the world is not a so-called low-cost adventure. Yeah, you need money, right? So now let's look at how we plan for retirement and have the money so that we can travel the peace of mind. Okay. Like whether you're retiring or whether you are not retiring yet, there are basic needs, and these are the three basic needs that you must seriously consider, especially during retirement where you are no longer working for a source of income, where you have no source of income. All right. So these three are retirement expenses. Of course, your retirement expenses means what? Your day to day. Okay, you have to live, right? You have to eat, right? So you have to travel, right? So all this has to be factored in. Okay. And then your housing, you need to live somewhere. Okay, you need to live somewhere, right? So housing expenses, you must remember to factor in. And of course, even while we are still fit and young, while we have full of energy, we still fall sick from time to time. So healthcare costs, expenses has to be considered. Why so serious? I mean, why so important during retirement? Because remember, you choose not to work anymore for income. So these are expenses that you must plan way ahead and make sure that you have enough. So let's use an example. Yeah? Let's use Andy. Andy as an example. What did he do? What did he do to prepare for his retirement? Now, Andy is 40 years old. Okay, what is his status? He's married and he has 2 preschool children. His current net annual income is 60,000. So he wants to retire, let's say we use Singapore plan, yeah, 65, yeah. So he wants to retire 65. Now that's a good 25 years to go. All right, so he has to start planning. And he decided to use the so-called adjusted expense method to prepare for it. Okay, so if you look at the table, before retirement, he has housing, transport, food, entertainment, medical, insurance, children expenses, which total about 3,700 per month. Okay, so he reckoned that after, during the retirement, when he's not working anymore, there's no more source of income. Yeah, this is a very crucial point to note. His expenses during the retirement will be 2,500. So let's look at how he's going to achieve this plan. So if you look at the diagram here, at age 65, his desired retirement sum, he's looking at 600,000. Okay, 600,000. So how much does he have now? At age 40, his cash is 30,000 and his CPF special account is 50,000. So currently he has only this amount, 80,000. So what is the shortfall? 520,000. So how to make this how to make up this shortfall? He has 3 plans concurrently. So the first one, he's going to top out every month $390 into the CPF special account until age 55. That will give him 186,000. All right. So at age 55, this amount of money will go into his retirement account, which will be compounded at 4%. And over the next 10 years, the amount will reach 280,000. And this is a good amount for him to participate in the CPF Life, which is a form of annuity. Now, the second plan he has, he's going to put $500 per month into an endowment policy, which pays 3.5% a year. So that will give him about 240,000 at age 65. And his third plan is the good old savings plan, right? He's going to save $120 a month. And then until age 65, he will have about 66,000. Now, all these 3 together will help him to make up this shortfall, all right? Based on projection, he can achieve 580,000, 586,000. That is good enough to cover the shortfall. Now, what would this retirement amount give him? If the plan goes according to plan, all right, successfully, he should able to get about $2,675 a month during the retirement from 65 years old onwards, all right? Now, maybe take a look. What is CPF Life here? Essentially, CPF Life is a kind of annuity. Okay, now after years of refinement, the current form of CPF Life offered by CPF board, they will pay until you lose the right to live. The day you're no longer living, they will pay and pay and pay until that moment. Yeah. So if let's say you have, as according to NT's plan, you want to have about 280,000 at age 65, that will pay him about 1,400 to 1,500 a month. All right, that's how he contribute to his so-called retirement monthly amount. So if you look at it, they have many ways to build your so-called financial wealth. Now, the first thing first is most important thing you cannot get away is to save money. Now, to save money, you have to factor in how much you make and how much you spend. And planning to spend is actually the art by itself. It's not so straightforward. Now, there are 2 forms. There are fixed expenses and daily expenses. Now, you have to cater to all this, all right, because these are expenses to keep you living, all right? And then this amount, you have to factor in at least saving amount up to 6 months, just in case you lose the source of income and then you have to rely on your savings, all right? So you have to save for that as well. We call that emergency savings. Now, after you have cater to your savings, the next plan you should have is insurance. All right, it's insurance. Yeah, it's not savings plan or whatever. It's just insurance to protect yourself. Okay, protect your life, which is an important asset to the family because you're going to bring bread and butter on the table, right? So you have to protect your life, and you have to protect against medical expenses. So you've got the health policies. So you take care of savings, then you take care of your insurance needs. Then, if you have any surplus, then we can talk about investment. So be careful with that. That is the proper sequence. Now, when you are going to investment, For the first time, especially, you have to be extremely cautious. All right. Investment is about taking risk. Don't always think about return. You think about whether you can take the risk. Only then you can think about, I mean, when that works out, then you have a return. So maybe you may want to start something simple like a Singapore savings bond when you do have the money to invest. Investment is a huge topic with so much depth. So I can't cover everything about investment today. So, but IFL provide a lot of courses pertaining to this topic. So I welcome you to sign up, all right, from our portal, and you can actually cover them more in depth. But suffice to know that we always have an objective. So you must have investment objective. And then remember, there's always a level of risk depending on how much risk you can take. We call that the risk profile that you have, whether what's your ability to take risk and your tolerance. And then of course your horizon, how long can you be invested? So these are all the key aspects of investments that you have to have in mind. All right. Okay. Again, please sign up for these courses so that we can spend time on those topics only. Right. Now I will move on. There's another source of so-called funds, all right, that you can use to contribute to your retirement fund, all right, which is you already have it. Okay, now is your current housing. So okay, as you build a family, you have children, you tend to have a bigger home, yeah, a bigger home, so they cater to the entire family needs, especially if you have parents to stay with you, you have young children and yourself, it's as good as like 3 generations of people staying in one house. So naturally you have a bigger one. Now, when the time comes where your parents are not with you anymore, your children are not living with you anymore, they have their own families, they have their own life, and then there were times where your home may be too big for you. Yeah, when you need to spend money to engage a domestic helper to clean up your home, and you find that to pick up something that you had to walk through a long corridor to reach it, maybe you may want to consider downsizing your home. Now, if you have that kind of idea, then there's good news to you. There's this thing called Silver Housing Bonus Scheme, all right, where you can actually downsize to a 3-room or smaller flat. Okay, and in the process, your proceeds, yeah, all right, you can actually use to top up your CPF retirement account, which of course use it to join CPF Life. And if you're going to do that, there will be HDB even give you a bonus, yeah, okay, up to 30,000. Of course, depends on criteria and amount and all that. That add into your retirement account, all right. But of course, subject to terms and conditions. Yeah, there's some eligibility to consider, all right. But that's definitely a good consideration. Alternatively, if you find that your current HDB home, all right, the remaining lease is way longer than your remaining life, then you may want to consider selling this back to HDB. We call that the lease buyback scheme, and these proceeds can also use to top up your retirement account. Or if you want to make it simple, right? If you have surplus rooms, rent it out. Yeah, this is the age-old approach. Yeah, you rent out the room, you earn a rental income. Okay, immediate cash for you to offset your additional expenses for a bigger home. And of course, I highlighted medical expenses during retirement. These are the various safety nets that are built in, all right, for us as Singaporeans and PRs, where you have these various schemes to protect ourselves. So you have MediShield Life, you have health insurance, then you have long-term care insurance, and then under the term insurance, you have DPS, which is the Dependents Protection Scheme, and the mortgage insurance, if you are still paying mortgage on your home, all right? Again, this is a big topic, and we have specific courses for that, all right? Please look up for it. Okay, at this stage, before we go into the ask me anything session, I want to invite a special guest, yeah, my colleague, Swee Chiu. Now, Swee Chiu, hi, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Arnold.
Yeah, Swee Chiu will join me to at a panel to address your questions under Ask Me Anything session. Now, before that, Swee Chiu, I may want to engage your expertise first, yeah. I would like to ask you, yeah. We all talk about building a so-called a retirement fund. We call them the 8 nests. we plan so much and we project so much, and then okay, this is the target we plan for. But back in our mind, we're always concerned that would that be enough? Yeah, maybe Swee, you want to share your ideas?
Sure. That's a very good question. I think retirement funding has two parts. So we've gone through the example of Andy. So the first part, which is the most immediate need of most pre-retirees, is to accumulate sufficient nest egg. So in Andy's case, is 600,000. Now let's say Andy has achieved 600,000 of savings by the time he wants to retire at age 65. Then the question is that 600,000 going to be able to last Andy the entire period of his retirement, which is another 20-25 years? He's not going to draw down that 600,000 immediately on day one. So it's likely that he would have to convert that nest egg into a monthly cash flow stream of income to pay for his likely expenses. In Andy's case, it's about $2,600 a month. Now, the principle of the nest egg invested, especially in financial markets, will be exposed to volatilities, the up and down, just like we are seeing in the last couple of weeks. So his 600,000 may go up a little bit, may come down by quite a bit over the course of the next 10, 20 years. So how does he make sure that it is enough? Fortunately, there are products like annuity, which can convert your principal into a monthly predictable cash flow. In the case of Andy, he benefits from Cpf Life, and he's based on his plan, he's going to get a $1,400 a month from Cpf Life. The benefit of that is that that $1,400 is not subject to market volatility. Cpf pays 4% interest. At this point in time, it's confirmed. You will always get that 4%. And the $1,400 a month, at this point in time, based on the estimate, will also stay at $1,400. It is not subject to market volatility. So that portion of his monthly income it's quite predictable. The remaining portions, which is his endowment and savings, will be subject to the volatility of the financial markets. So in periods where there are very long, prolonged periods of market downturns, then Andy may find that he is actually worse off. So how does he manage that part? It's a function of his retirement expenses. So Andy needs to look at his retirement expenses and then prioritize them. There will be a large portion that will be fixed and essential. So let's say if Andy's case, it's about $1,400, then he's in luck because $1,400 of fixed and essential expenses can be met by his $1,400 of fixed income from CPF. And then the rest of the expenses, which can be more variable. So when markets are doing well and he's earning good returns on his investments, then he can be a bit more luxurious and spend a bit more. But if markets were going through a prolonged period of downturn, then he may have to do belt tightening for a short while to reduce his expenses temporarily. And he's only able to do that because that portion of his monthly expenses is more flexible. Now, how to do that? There are methods and there are products. And CPF Life is very simple. But then as you get out of CPF into private products, then Andy may need the advice of a licensed financial advisor who will then be able to take him through a proper planning process. So I hope that answers that question about retirement income.
Thank you so much. And now I'm more comforted. Yeah, thanks, Swee Chu. Okay, let's say we take away this concern about sufficiency of the nest egg, yeah, the fund, and then we can be comforted on that. But certain things we can't control. For example, I mean, we can do so much, but outside, when we want to buy things, things become more expensive. So this concern about inflation, how do we manage that? I mean, if inflation is too high, then whatever sufficiency now is no longer sufficient, right? So yeah, maybe you want to share on that as well.
That's another very good question. Especially in the last 3 to 6 months, there's been a lot of concerns about inflation. Now, what is inflation? So inflation refers to the increase in prices. Most of us will have stories to tell about how our favorite hawker food has suddenly become more expensive by a lot compared to what it was last year or 3 years ago. However, we do have selective memory. So the best way to measure inflation is to look at data and statistics. Fortunately, MAS publishes such data on a regular basis. In fact, there are inflation data that goes back 20, 30 or more years in the MAS website that you can download and take a look. For a long time, up until maybe recently, the inflation numbers are quite mute. It probably around 2% or less. Now, recent increases, it's due to the COVID pandemic impacting supply chain issues. So the long and short of it is basically it's harder to bring a bicycle from China to Singapore, for example, right? Ships and freight rates and all that. So that has created the increases in price. Now, having said that, inflation has two different components. One we call headline and one we call core. As retirees, we should, or you should only be concerned more with the core inflation, which refers to the necessities, the bread and butter consumption. What is included in the headline inflation is basically core plus two components, which affects some people, but not all. It's housing prices and transport prices. So if you are a retiree, likely your primary home for retirement is taken care of. You're not really going to buy a new place. So housing prices increase is not going to factor into your consumption basket. And transport, likely you are not going to be buying a new car, or you're likely going to rely on public transport. So the COE increases that you are seeing in the newspaper is not going to really affect the retirees as well. So focus on the core inflation. It is true that the core inflation has increased in recent months. Basically, things like utilities. All of us are reading about electricity tariffs going up. So utilities is one component of core inflation. Now, how worried should we be, or retirees be? It's a function of, number one, are the price increases once off, or is it sustained increases year after year? If it is a once-off price increase, for example, GST. Now, GST is going to hit you over the next 2 years, but then it's not going to continue to go up. It's going to be there. So it hit you one time, that effect will be absorbed, and then after that, the effect will be less felt. Now, the feeling of the effect on your pocket will be a function of how flexible is your consumption basket. So you need to look at your expenses, even core fixed essential expenses, you look at them. Can you substitute some of these expenses? So for example, if transport prices have gone up, are you able to substitute away from taking taking Grab and taxis to taking public transport? And if public transport prices also go up, how about doing more cycling or more walking? So this is what I mean by substitution. If price of meat goes up, are there any other ways to get your source of protein? So that substitution ability will allow you to adjust your consumption basket against inflation. But still, inflation will be felt. The other aspect of inflation that's important is also on your saving side and on your investment side. Now, if inflation numbers are up, then it is likely that if you are invested in securities like equities, shares of companies, REIT, real estate investment trusts, or securities that are less interest sensitive, then the returns on those investments will also be higher. It's all connected. So if those returns are higher, then the real return from your investment is actually positive, and in which case you can mitigate the inflation by the returns from your investment. Now, if you are invested in bonds, then that may not be such good news, because bonds are generally known to be less able to meet inflationary risk. Now, how you should invest, how much, composition of your portfolio, if you are not very sure, it's also best to see a licensed financial advisor who will be able to help you construct a diversified portfolio that insulate you against this inflationary pressure. Fortunately, many retirees are relying primarily on CPF monies, and CPF in the primary form of retirement, special account and retirement account pays 4% plus bonus interest. That number is actually relatively high, even in today's context of talking about inflation. So CPF money seems to be able to overcome that inflation number. And in Andy's case, when he's using his CPF Life monies, right? Some of you will know that Andy can actually choose a third plan called the escalating plan, which means that he can choose to receive less at the beginning, less than $1,400, so that the remaining monies can compound over a longer period of time, so that he's able to have more than $1,400 later on in his life. So use less now so that you can have more later.
Thank you so much, Richu.
Yeah.
Okay. I will now want to take questions from the so-called participants. Now, let me give you the so-called the Slido access. Yeah. Now, on the screen, you can see that there's a QR code. Okay, scan it. You will get into our Slido platform, and you can key in questions, anything. All right, and I will try my best to address all of them. Subject to time limits and all that. So maybe you can start keying questions. There are already some questions on Slido. You can see them as well. If you could just get in now, and then we can all go through this so-called Slido questions. Yeah, I will address them as much as I could. Yeah. Okay. So I can see many questions. So let's look at okay, maybe the first one I can see here is, I'm single and worried that in retirement, no one will look after my affairs. I recently heard about LPA. Can you explain more? Okay, this is more like a legal question, yeah, but I will do what I can. I'm not a lawyer, and I wouldn't know the specific, but what I know is LPA stands for lasting power of attorney. What you're trying to address is, in the event that when we get old and for some reason our mental capacity is no longer functioning well, so you may want somebody to think for you to manage your affairs. All right, and you, while you are still sound-minded, you can actually enter a document called LPA, lasting power of attorney, appoint somebody that you can trust. All right, can trust to manage your affair, and give the person a scope. You can create different ones or whatever purpose, but important thing is there's a scope that you can plan what they can do and what they cannot do, so that they will manage it in the best interest of you after when your mind capacity is not there. I hope I addressed your question, but for more info, I suggest you speak to a lawyer. Yeah, I think they were able to advise you much better.
Maybe I can chime in a bit. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So the person who asked this question focused also on the fact that he or she is single, and I think it is an important point as well. Most of us are married, and so it is very common to have our spouse as the so-called appointed the representative. But those of us, or those of you who are single, right, by choice or otherwise, may not have the immediate sort of recourse. So in which case, then you need to think about your circle of friends and close associates. That's why future planning is so important. Don't wait until it is too late, then do the planning. You have to do the planning today, even though that you are still young, because you need to think about who are the people in your social circle, in your circle of contact that you can rely on to plan or make choices about monies, make choices about living conditions, and then have a conversation with these people, because they must also be willing. And once you have established that, then you know that, hey, there's a person that I can lean on. And then later on, when you're ready to make that document, then this person can be a natural appointee of yours. So I hope that I've addressed that part about being single. Over to you, Arnold.
Sushil, since on that topic, is there an option where you can actually appoint a professional body or person, entity, to actually be the person to be appointed to, instead of your circle of friends? Can that be done?
Yes. So under the current rules, so the Ministry of Social and Family Services, Services actually manage this whole aspect under the Office of Public Guardian. So right now there is a arrangement, a legal arrangement, whereby a group of professionals having qualified, taken an exam, and they're coming from certain professions like accounting, social work, or law, and then they can become what they call professional deputies. Then you can appoint these people as appointed representative, But obviously, because it's a private arrangement, they will charge a fee, and you have to look at the comfort level between this person and also the amount of money. There are actually two aspects of looking after, so to speak, under the LPA framework. One aspect is money. The other aspect is personal welfare. So when it comes to personal welfare, the person that you appoint must be an individual. It cannot be a corporation. Whereas under monetary matters, you can always appoint a company or a trust company to look after that. But personal affairs, it has to be an individual. So go to the Office of Public Guardian website. Under professional deputies, you should be able to find more information.
Thank you so much. And now we know that there's many options actually to consider that. Next question I want to take. Okay, the first one says, is CPF money safe? I feel that money is in the bank is safer. Now, maybe you can look at who is the one who's going to take care of the money, right? Now, CPF basically is government owned, yeah? And bank, essentially, monies that you put in the bank, actually they borrowed from you, yeah? So whether they can return back to you or not, of course, depends on the creditworthiness of the bank. And the bank is not government owned, yeah? It's actually a private so-called entity, all right? So what do you think? Is the government safer or the private entity shareholders are safer, right? So remember, the government is the one who so-called print the money, right? So, you think from that angle, I think you will know the answer, yeah, who is safer. Okay, I hope I address your concern on that. Next question I can see here. I'm 45. Is it too late to start planning for retirement? How to catch up? Now, okay, Andy example was 40 years old and 45, I mean, there's a gap of 5 years, but it's not too late. I mean, 45 is actually relatively young in the space of retirement. The government is talking about 80, 90 years old, you're only halfway there, yeah? So between 45 to 65, there's a long, if you use 65 as, again, sorry, when is your retirement is another question, yeah? Yeah, so assuming 65 is a retirement, of course, you can choose later, 70 also, it's up to you. Now, between 45 to that age, right, you have a good 20 or more years. Definitely, you can do a proper planning. So please start, okay? Please start immediately, all right? The earlier you start, the easier for you in terms of number, seriously, okay? Now, next question I can see on my screen. I plan to ballot for the prime housing project. In 10 years' time, when I'm retired, I can sell and profit can be my retirement. What do I think? Now, as I said, I can't give you advice, but I can share what I have in mind. Okay, when you want to do that, yes, remember what I talked about the silver housing plan, right? Remember, when you sell a home, right, you must remember that you need to buy one back, yeah? Okay, so how much you're going to buy the next one will determine whether you have enough money for this plan. Okay, and whether is it a profit or not, I can't be sure about that, but I believe based on history seems to be mainly because when you buy a new flat, actually government do give you a subsidy. Probably that can be what you mean by profit. So all this, right, you have to plan and have to factor in your projection. All right, definitely is one of the ways, but I would suggest you use multiple ways, and then this 8 nests can be more so-called sustainable. All right,
Andy, maybe I want to chime in on this question. Yeah. So buying property and selling property and then profits for retirement, it's good. And it's also related to the earlier question about 45 and is it too late? I find that on average, many of us spend way too much money on properties, right? And the payment for the properties is usually taken out from our CPF. We forget that the CPF is actually an important source of retirement income. So in the earlier case about how to catch up is 45, the person can also start looking at his special account. He would already have accumulated some amount of monies in there, and then to think about how to maximize that monies in his CPF account. Because the more we use those monies for housing, the less we would have in the CPF. And CPF compounding at 4% is actually a very good a good financial plan. So before you think about going and buy another property and hoping to profit from it in the future, do remember that to pay for this new property, you may have to dig deeper into your CPF funds. And is that appropriate option, especially if you are already older and closer to your retirement? So just bear that in mind. The more you spend on property using CPF monies, the less you would have in retirement. I saw a statistic somewhere that says that on average, across many age group, more than 70 or 80% of our total net worth in terms of personal wealth is actually locked up in property and property value. That is actually quite a high number. Yeah. Over to you, Arnold.
Thank you, thanks. I hope that will give you some ideas, yeah, if you want to use property. The next question I have here is, can you advise how to grow my savings faster so that I don't have to save so hard? People are talking about Bitcoins. Now, okay, I think the focus of this question is about Bitcoins, yeah? I mean, saving, there are many ways to increase your financial wealth, but let me just have a pick on Bitcoins. That's my own ideas. As I say, I can't advise. Now, I always thought that if I understand your question correctly, you're talking about using investment to increase your financial wealth, and you're talking about, people are really talking about Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin? So whether you can consider Bitcoins. Now, important thing here is when you talk about investment, okay, remember, you are taking some risk, all right? You're taking risk so that you have a higher return. I mean, there's no such thing called no risk and high return, yeah? If somebody comes to that, you better be very careful, okay? Now, there's always taking risk and then enjoy a higher return. Now, the risk is something that you can analyze, you can take a calculated approach, all right, on some reasons, all right? So for a very traditional approach, let's say I were to invest in company A, it's because I've been analyze the company's performance in the past, current, future, and then I take a stand, okay, that a company will continue to perform well, and then you will give me returns. I take a risk because they may not, you see, but at least there's a reason. Oh, because the past 10 years they have been doing well. So you have a reason, that's why you invest. Now, anything that you do not have a proper reason, there's no analysis, to me is gambling. So whether Bitcoin fit into this category, I leave it to you. Yeah. Can you analyze it? Is there a reason? So I would ask you to think so-called seriously about using Bitcoin as an investment tool. All right. Okay. The next question I see on my screen is very, very valid, very a big concern. Falling sick in Singapore can be very expensive, which I can't deny. And how to afford medical care in old age? Should I be worried? Now, the way the whole system in Singapore, the way we plan out is, yes, medical expenses is always a big concern. That's why we must factor for it. Now, if you have, I would suggest you minimally, you must follow the CPF scheme where you have this MediShield in place. That is very, very crucial, because the whole purpose of a MediShield is to take care of this concern. And you will take care of concerns where when you have needs up to, let's say there's a hospitalization, up to C or B2 ward level. So that basically take care of your basic needs. And of course, if you need more than that, if you think that you want a certain element of comfort in it, then probably you may want to consider engaging private insurer to so-called increase this medical coverage, right? There are various integrated plans. Again, please find a financial advisor to advise you which is a good one to add on. But just let me repeat, make sure your MediShield is in place, and then that at least take care of your basic needs. All right.
I know, if I may add, right?
Yes, please.
So, yes, it is true that medical care can be very expensive in Singapore, but it's also on a spectrum, as you just mentioned, right? So there are private high-end care that costs a lot, but there are also public, very highly subsidized care in the public hospital. It's not necessary that the cheaper care is lower quality than the more expensive care. Sometimes it's also a function of expectations and comfort level. In Singapore, if you are Singaporean, right, you should know that there is a social safety net. There are funds like MediFund, that would actually cater to Singaporeans who are down and out, who for whatever reasons don't have monies or don't have enough monies or savings or next of kin to pay for their medical expenses in the government hospital. So there's always this safety net. But of course, you know, for many of us who are looking at a more comfortable retirement, we are obviously not going to be completely down and out. Then it's a function of what Arnold mentioned just now, a trade-off between the care that you want and how much premium that you can afford in terms of the insurance cover. Remember, the more you spend on insurance coverage, the less monies you have for other expenses. Back to you, Arnold.
Thank you. Thanks for the addition part. I have one more to add. Remember, for all medical insurance, there's always a component of deductible and co-insurance. And whatever, if you buy a big coverage, naturally deductible and co-insurance will also go up. So be prepared for that. Although there are riders to so-called cover this aspect of it, remember, the premiums for this rider, you have to use cash to pay, right? You can't use MediSave to pay. So just take note and then plan accordingly. Okay. Okay, I have another question, which I have questions rather than answers to this particular question. It says here, I was introduced to an insurance where I can get a loan for the premium. When I'm 65, you will pay me a monthly income of $2,000. Too good to be true. Now, when I look at this monthly income of $2,000 a month, in fact, under the Cpf Life, it's the highest scheme, yeah, that you can get about 2,000 plus a month. So there's a lot of money involved here. And I don't understand the part where you need to get, you can get a loan for the premium. Okay, I have question to this question. First thing first is where you get the loan, who provides the loan, what interest are you paying? Is this interest going to eat up your so-called monthly income subsequently? And basically, who is the one who are going to pay this money income? So please, all right, I think it's better for you to find out all these so-called answers to these questions before you can make an assessment to this plan. All right.
Arnold,
yes.
Maybe I can take a stab at this. I agree with you. The question is a bit big. And I want to zoom in on the loan part, right? Obviously, we are not going to advise on the product features. So assuming that what is put there is indeed the product feature. Now, getting a loan essentially involves leverage. Borrowed money must always be repaid. And you need to remember that repayment of loan is a commitment or an obligation over a fairly long period of times into the future. And whether times are good or times are bad, the loan still needs to be paid back. So I think we all have to remember that when we borrow money to invest or buy insurance or any product, while the result on surface looks good, we also need to sensitize the situation to see whether in the worst case scenario, if I fall very sick and then I don't have the requisite savings left behind to pay the loan, the interest and all that, what would happen to that whole arrangement? And as you mentioned earlier, is the interest rate fixed? Is the interest rate going to increase? So all these variables means that in a financial crisis, so to speak, then this sort of leverage situation tend to accentuate, right? So it may not be very suitable for someone in retirement to sort of be subjected to this side of volatility. So quite besides just looking at the financial product itself, the features, is also to remember borrowed monies comes with its own risk. Back to you, Arnold.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question on my screen is, before I retire, is there a way for me to project my retirement income? I have shown you my earlier presentation where Andy did his plan. He can actually project. All right. So if you use proper vehicles, like for example, use a Cpf, Life and all that, and you can actually do projection because you know the interest is fixed, the payout is fixed. So all that can be all factored in. Okay. So that can be done. All right. Now, what kind of investment do you recommend for retirees? As said, I don't give advice or recommendation, but I do give you the idea, the features of the investment. Basically, as a retiree, the last thing you can you should concern about is to lose your principal amount. So you should focus on investments that are income-based, right? So that so that you can project your retirement income. That's linked to my earlier question. And also not subject to your principal to too much risk that you may lose it. So that will be probably the kind of investments that I would think of. Siju, if you have any other ideas?
Yeah, I think rather than to focus on the type of specific types of investment, I want to look at a more macro picture, right? So in any investment portfolio, there is also this concept of allocation. So how many percent of that portfolio is allocated to stocks? How many percent of that portfolio is allocated to bonds? How many percent allocated to REITs and so on and so forth? And that portfolio allocation percentage is actually quite important in driving our investment decisions. That's to say that when you are younger, then that portfolio allocation to higher risk, higher return instruments should be higher. So a person who is in his 30s or 40s could have 50% or 40% of the portfolio allocated to lower risk product and 60% or 70% allocated to higher risk product because the person can take more risk, is younger. But as the person become older and moving into the retirement years of 65, 70 or 50 something, then that allocation has to be shifted such that more of that portfolio is invested in lower risk securities and less of the portfolio is invested in the higher risk, higher return. So I think one important thing as you age over time is to remember to adjust that allocation percentages so that it reflects the amount of risk that you can take in your respective life stage. So that's the macro level that I wanted to talk about. And there is a back of the envelope so-called guideline that you read sometimes on popular investment blogs, and that is to say that the percentage of the portfolio that is invested in lower risk, the percentage of the portfolio invested in lower risk should be equal to your age. So if you are 30, then 30% in lower risk investment. If you are 70, then it should be 70% in lower risk investment. So I hope I have answered that question from this perspective. Back to you, Arnold.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. The next question I have, what are my biggest financial risks in retirement? Before we kick off this Ask Me Anything session, that is exactly what I addressed in my discussion with Siju. Basically, it refers to the sufficiency of your retirement fund. That's one. And you project them, but if it did not turn out to be the amount that you're looking for, so that's one risk. And second, inflation. So Siju has addressed that. So basically, do note that these are the two biggest financial risks.
Arnold, I want to chime in with a third one, which is that monies are hard to earn and accumulate. Don't let scammers scam away your money. So I think in the context of what happened with a local bank recently and some of his customers, be sensitive to scams and basically crooks.
Good. Yeah. That's something that I think that is a financial risk for all ages. Yeah, I noticed that there are a lot of young people that was caught as well. Yeah, so please, be very extra vigilant in your dealings. Yeah, all right. Okay. The next question I have: what percentage of my final working earnings will I need in retirement income? Now, it's not so much from that angle. Actually, you should. In my presentation earlier on, you should go through the same process that Andy went through. What are your expenses? What do you need during retirement? And based on that, you work backwards on the amount you need to achieve, and then you plan accordingly. That should be the right approach. Yeah, it all depends on your so-called living lifestyle, your needs, your wants, and also your responsibility towards those depend on you. Yeah. Okay, so please, that should be the right approach. Okay. In mind, I have decided to leave whatever I have to my 3 children. Do I still need to do a proper estate planning? Okay, the fact that you want to leave your so-called your wealth upon your demise to your 3 children, that is already a plan. In my mind, you should do it in a proper legal way, right? So a proper will will be a much better. Okay, you see, the main thing about in this space is either the person pass on without a will or with a will. So if you, let's say, if without a will, then you are subject to the natural so-called estate planning in Singapore court, and that would be a longer process because the court will help to assess the situation, and then before they issue a letter of administration, and then they have to figure out all the beneficiaries. So that is a very so-called long process. But since you already know that you want to give to your 3 children, which is specifically the beneficiary, and I suppose you also know what's the percentage to divide among the 3, then setting up a will is a lot better. Okay, and also appoint an executor. So once the court is satisfied that you have a proper will, they will give a letter of probate to let your executor to execute your will, yeah, your wishes, and then so-called make sure that the benefit of all your wealth, whatever you left behind for the 3 children, are well taken care of. Be mindful that they are still children. So the executor must be somebody can be depend on to make sure that the 3 children so-called benefits the interests are taken care of until they are 21 years old. So I hope I answered that question. It's actually it's a legal question actually. So again, advise you to get proper legal advice to address this concern. Chichu, you got anything to add?
I suppose one point I would say is that it also depends on the type of assets you want to leave to your children. And it requires proper planning simply because some assets don't lend itself very well to dividing equally. Example, your HDB flat. So if you want to give your HDB flat to your 3 children, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 each, there's also the other issue of eligibility of your children to be able to hold on to the HDB flat. And your 3 children may not be able to own them equally. So I think you need to think about stuff like that as well, eligibility issues, and whether the asset is suitable to be actually divided equally amongst the 3 children. Cash, securities, investments are much easier to divide by a third each. So I think that's something that requires you to think a little bit. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sichu. Yeah. My next question here is, in the golden years, one consideration is nursing home, OH care, end of life care. Any scheme Singaporeans can tap on instead of relying on kids or eroding nest egg. This is a very, I would say, to me, it's a very macro question. It pertains to the entire retirement plan you have, in addition to just talking about so-called nest egg. Okay, nursing home, OH care, end of life care, you're talking about where your health is so-called deteriorating or failing. So now, to what extent and whether you have the so-called mental capacity also should factor in. Now, earlier on, there was a question on LPA. I think that would help. All right, that would help, especially when you have a mental capacity issue. And basically, if you have proper planning, okay, in that aspect, and sufficient so-called nest egg to sustain that LPA, and or basically sufficient net eggs up. Okay, your CPF planning and all those schemes that collectively, if you have factored into your consideration, that is a possible approach to tap on. Yeah. Maybe Shui-Chu, you get any ideas on this as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. This is a very big area, and it's quite young in terms of development. But I would want to point the areas not so much in terms of managing the expenses relating to OH, but more in terms of where are the resources to help you. So at one end, for example, if you are elderly now, so likely you will be in the pioneer generation or maybe the Merdeka generation. So if you're in a pioneer generation, do know that there are several schemes from the government that can help to pay for some of these old age expenses, including help hiring of domestic worker, caregiver relief, and also disability income. And the second aspect of the question is about more like the kids eroding nest egg, meaning maybe the monies are being squandered by somebody else in your old age. So if you're looking for security of funds, your own nest egg, then do know that there is a MSF-sponsored organization called Special Needs Trust Company. So their mandate is to basically manage the disbursement of monies and the protection of those monies for people with no mental capacity. So you need to make sure that you've done an LPA beforehand, and you can direct your representative to approach this organization, and then to put your nest egg, the monies in your nest egg, into one of these trust account. Then you can make sure that the monies in this trust account will only be used for your old age care and end of life care, and not be squandered away by other people. But I agree with you, it's a very big topic which we don't really have too much time today to answer. Back to you, Arnold.
Thank you. I'm afraid that I just checked the clock. We are running out of time. So I have to go towards a closure now. But do not be concerned. Please ask the questions to us via, I'll show you which email to use that you can actually find out. All right, now let me show you what I have. Okay, more to share. Now, if you look at the screen, there's this QR code, or there's a link here. You can actually download a retirement planning booklet. Okay, so feel free. Now, maybe you want to scan it now, and I'll take down the link. I'll give you a few seconds to do it. Okay, I will move on, yeah, in the interest of time. Now, this is the content that you can actually tap on. You can email us at this email address, ifl@spi.edu.sg, or you can post your questions on finlearn.sg, which is our portal. Okay. Okay. I have to do some marketing here. Earlier on, actually, there are a lot of topics that we would like to cover, like investment, savings, insurance. So there are a lot of so-called knowledge that we're really keen to transfer, to share with you. You can use this QR code to go into our events site to see what other sessions are coming up. And just to repeat, they're all free. Our motto is to educate the public. So please feel free. All right, you are welcome to join these courses. The only thing that I ask from you, although it's free, okay, before that, these are the website or the social media websites that we have for more information to share with you. Okay, especially the social websites that we have is Facebook, Instagram, and Telegram. Okay, do take note of this so-called URL. Or you can search, yeah, you can search them, yeah. Okay, as I said, it's free, okay, but I do ask something from you. We want to know what we can do better for you. All right, if there's any comments, any feedback, on the left, you can see the QR code. Please give us your feedback, and we will do our best to meet your request, yeah, your feedback. At the same time, this Ask Me Anything session, we do have podcasts to follow up. Basically, sessions that we will discuss more in depth about retirement planning. All right. We do watch out and be updated to know when is the so-called this podcast will be posted. We will keep you informed. Okay, so please remember us and come back, check on us. All right. So with that, I want to extend a big thank you to all of you, your participation and your questions that's posted on Slido. We are very, very glad to receive them and to share with everybody. And I also want to thank Swee Chu to join me in this panel of discussion. Swee Chu, thank you. So, okay, to the rest, please look out for our podcast. We will share on our site when is it available. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, bye-bye to you. Have a good weekend.